Everything you think you know about special forces is wrong. Let me prove it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the War Room Library. I'm glad you made it here today because I've got a good one for you. A really good one. Today we are going to talk about Secret Armies, and that is written by James Adams. And look, if you're into special forces, covert operations, Cold War military history, or just the shadowy world of the men and women who fight wars that never make the news, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Let's start at the beginning. So, who is the author, James Adams? Because I think this matters. A lot of books get written about special forces. I mean, a lot of books. And a huge chunk of them are written by people guessing from the outside. James Adams is not that guy. He was the Defence Correspondent for the London Sunday Times. Now, let's just let that sink in. This is one of the most respected and serious newspapers in the world. And he was their man on defence. Real contacts, the kind of contacts you get from years of building trust with people who actually know things. People inside the intelligence community, people inside special forces units, people who under normal circumstances would never talk to a journalist. And that makes a massive difference to the quality of what's in this book. The book was first published in 1988. So we're talking about the height of the Cold War, right at that point where the world is still divided into two camps. Tensions are still very real, and there is the shadow war. You know, that covert war is absolutely raging. That context is everything when you read this book. Alright, so what does James Adams actually cover? At its core, this is a deep dive into three of the most elite military operations or military forces. The Delta Force, the Americans, the SAS, the British, and Spetsnaz, the Soviets. And Adams isn't just giving you a glossy brochure about this, how cool these units are. He's asking real questions, hard questions. How do they actually train people? Who recruits them? Where have they succeeded? And crucially, where have they failed? But it doesn't stop there. He also pulls back the curtain on West Germany's GSG-9, France's GIGN, Egypt's Force 777, Israel, and also the South African Recce's. Adams is casting a wide net and asking serious comparative questions about how different nations build, train, and deploy their most secret soldiers. And there's more still. He also digs into the financial side of the terrorist organizations with these units, the PLO, the IRA, Italy's Red Army, because to understand the special forces, you have to understand the threat that they were designed to counter, and Adams gets to that. Let me give you a feel of the real world events Adams takes you through in this book, because this isn't just theory, this isn't just dry doctrine and organizational charts. Adams walks you through actual operations, real missions, and real outcomes. For instance, the Iranian Embassy Siege, London, 1980, 6 gunmen, 26 hostages, and the SAS going in live on British television. One of the most dramatic moments in Special Forces history. And Adams gives you the inside story. Entebbe, 1976, Israeli commandos flying 4,000 kilometers to rescue hostages in Uganda. An operation so bold, so precisely executed, it is still studied in military academies today. And Mogadishu 1977, where the GSG-9 rescued 86 passengers, killing 3 of the 4 hijackers. These are the kinds of operations that make headlines for a day and then disappear. Adams gives them the depth they deserve. The Falklands, 1982, the SAS operating deep behind Argentine lines, gathering intelligence, destroying aircraft on the ground. If you're a Falklands nerd, and I suspect some of you are, this section alone is worth the price of the book. The Achille Lauro, 1985, an Italian cruise ship hijacked by Palestinian terrorists, 1 American passenger murdered, and a frankly chaotic international response that Adams dissects with real precision. And then there's Grenada, and we'll come on to that later, because Grenada is where Adams really takes the gloves off. Right, so this is where the book really gets interesting. Here's where James Adams stops being a neutral observer and starts giving you his actual opinion. And this opinion is robust. Adams effectively grades the three main special forces, the Soviets, he gives Spetsnaz an A, the British SAS gets a B, and the Americans, Delta Force, he gives an F, a flat out F. Now, before everyone's upset, don't shoot the messenger. Let's be clear what Adams is saying here. He's not saying that American soldiers aren't brave or committed or skilled. He's making a structural argument. His argument is that Delta Force and the US Special Operations at the time were at a point in time which were neglected, misused, misunderstood, and poorly integrated into the wider US military command. And the evidence he uses to make this case is the invasion of Grenada in 1982. Delta Force were involved in the operation in Grenada that resulted in the deaths of 14 American soldiers killed by their own side in a series of catastrophic coordination failures. Adams' account of that operation is frankly devastating. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't make excuses. He just tells you what happened, and he lets the facts speak for themselves. And he's equally hard on Lieutenant Colonel North for his role in Grenada, for his involvement in the Acaliaro response, and for what Adams sees as his chaotic cowboy approach to covert operations. He also pulls no punches on the wider Iranian Contra affair, arguing that the United States was, in his words, the victim of a confidence trick by a wide range of actors, arms dealers, foreign governments, and their own people. Now look, whether you agree with those conclusions or not, it makes for a gripping read. Now let's talk about the Spetsnaz, the Soviets, because I think this is one of the most fascinating parts of the books. We're talking 1988, it's the Cold War. It's still raging on. The Soviet Union still exists, and Spetsnaz is still deeply, deeply mysterious to Western audiences. Adams had access to more information about Spetsnaz than almost anyone outside the Soviet military at that point in time, and what he reveals is striking. He argues that Spetsnaz was, in terms of operational capability, the most effective special forces unit in the world. There's a famous example in the book where Adams describes something called the descent maneuver as a top-secret Soviet special forces tactic. Post-Cold War, historians established that descent is basically just the French word for deployed by vehicle, not a secret weapon, not a secret tactic, just a word, which tells you something about the information environment in 1988. Both sides were so paranoid, so secretive, that ordinary things got inflated into mysteries. So, let's talk a bit about the book now. The actual reading experience, because great research and great writing are two different things. And some military history books are brilliant on the research and absolutely brutal to get through. But Secret Armies is not like that. One reviewer described it as a balanced light tone and crisply written, and I think that's exactly right. Adams writes like a journalist, which makes sense. He's a journalist. He doesn't get bogged down in the jargon. He doesn't assume you already know the organizational structure of the US Army. He explains things clearly, he moves quickly, and he keeps the narrative momentum going. Frederick Forsyth, yes, the author of Day of the Jackal, praised this book for blending solid research with clear narrative. Now, I want to be fair here, because no book is perfect, and I think you deserve an honest review. The most obvious limitations is the publication date. This is a 1988 book. The world has changed a lot since 1988. The Soviet Union no longer exists. Spetsnaz still does, but in a very different context. The whole geopolitical picture has shifted, and some of the details Adams gets from his sources have since been updated or corrected. The Spetsnaz assessments in particular are very much a product of the Cold War intelligence thinking. Some of what seemed like extraordinary Soviet capabilities turned out to be more ordinary than feared. Adams also has a British perspective that occasionally colours his analysis. Some of the structural reforms he recommends for American Special Forces are reforms that would make sense in a British context, but don't necessarily translate to the very different culture and scale of the American military. He's not wrong to make those observations, but it's worth keeping that lens in mind as you read this book. And look, the book has a strong editorial viewpoint. Adams isn't trying to be neutral. He has opinions, he shares them, and he backs them up with evidence. Some readers love that, some find it frustrating. Personally, I think it makes the book more interesting. I'd rather read something with a point of view that than something that sits on the fence for 400 pages. So, given all that, why are we talking about a book from 1988 here on War Room Library in 2026? And that's a good question. I mean, I first read this book 20 odd years ago, and it's a foundational text. Other books on special forces cite Secret Armies as a source that tells you everything about the credibility and the impact of this book. Who controls these units? Who do they answer to? Are they being used effectively, or are they being misused for political purposes? Those questions didn't go away with the end of the Cold War. If anything, in the age of counterterrorism and grey zone conflict, they're more important than ever. Reading Secret Armies today gives you something really valuable, a snapshot of back in the Cold War, a genuine, detailed snapshot when the war was actually being fought at the covert level in the 1980s, not through the lens of hindsight, not cleaned up for history, but as it looked and felt at the time. That's a rare thing, and it's worth a lot. So, final verdict. Secret Armies by James Adams is a serious, well-researched, compelling written book about the most secretive military units in the world. It's opinionated and unapologetically so. It's dated in places, and that's actually part of its value. It raises questions about accountability, effectiveness, and the use of force that we are still wrestling with today. If you're a fan of military history, read it. If you're interested in the Cold War, read it. If you're fascinated by special forces and want something with real depth rather than just a Hollywood version, absolutely you must read this book. Just go in knowing it's a product of an era. Keep a critical eye on the Cold War and enjoy the ride, because this is a lot to enjoy. That is Secret Armies by James Adams. Let me know in the comments if you've read it and what you thought. And as always, drop your suggestions for what we should cover next. Here on the War Room Library, I'm John Mason, and you've been watching the War Room Library. Next, I think we will be doing a book by, what's his name now? Otto Skorzeny. Speak to you then.